So I think it's a real shame that this season of Netflix The Witcher hasn't been going, it's not bad, but it's not been going great. They have the viewership for the season 3 of The Witcher has dropped off so much. I think the viewership came in. Netflix maybe released it, I guess, and it's like 1.1 million people tuned in for the series premiere, and then by episode 5 of this part 1 of the series, I think is down to half that amount. And it might have to do with, so this is my theory, and I don't know how right I am about this theory. I think a lot of the people who tuned into The Witcher this season, the very first episode where they have that 1.1 million person viewership, there were people who were like, casual fans, hardcore fans, and casual viewers. I think a lot of the people that came in, this is just what I think. I don't have any proof behind this, but a lot of people that came in to episode 1 of The Witcher were people who were either drawn in by the fact that it's just a new show on Netflix, maybe they had never watched the series before, heard of it, and then the fact that it's something new, because you don't have a lot of new stuff coming out on Netflix right now. It's not a lot of competition in the top 10 when The Witcher premiered. So it's new. Why not? You're at home. It's Netflix. You're already paying for the subscription. You don't have to pay extra for it. Watch it, right? And then I think also the drama that has surrounded Henry Cavill and The Witcher up, till now. All of the attention that has garnered, just in general with Henry Cavill, just people knowing that it's a show that Henry Cavill was on, even if they had never heard of The Witcher, knowing who Henry Cavill is, all of the drama, him getting fired for Superman, all of the drama Warner Brothers, all the drama with DC, got people interested in possibly watching a show that maybe they had never really been interested in watching before, just because Henry Cavill was in it. And as those fans who were just curious to see something that Henry Cavill was in, because he's the talk of the town, or was the talk of the town, with all of the shows and movie roles getting canceled and stuff, and the drama with The Witcher, I think eventually that, died off, right? And the reason I say this is because I think the fans who are the fans of The Witcher, who already had it in their mind that they were going to boycott season 3, didn't all of a sudden change their mind and tune in to the first episode of season 1 and then gradually fall off as the season went on, because if nothing else, they would have noticed that this was the best season that we have gotten of The Witcher. So if they tuned in to like, okay, I'm going to give it a chance, I don't think they would have halfway through it be like, okay, I'm done with it, because my moral stance on supporting Henry Cavill kicked in episode 3 of this season. So I think the fans who wanted to boycott The Witcher because they didn't agree, or they're upset that Henry Cavill is leaving, I think they stayed away from it because, they stayed away from it. Maybe a couple of them were curious and tuned in to the first episode just to see where it was. But I think for the most part, they stayed away. So I think the majority of the people who really didn't care that Henry might be a little bit sore about it, but they don't care so much that they are going to boycott the whole season. Or, like I said, those curious people who really never really was that invested in The Witcher, but because of all the drama with Henry Cavill, decided to tune in and see what everything was about. And that's why I think the viewership dropped off so heavily as the 5 episodes went on. If you listen to my Witcher podcast, which all of them, I think 2 of them are out, on maybe 1, I can't remember, on YouTube, which I'll link the ones that are out to this video here. But if you did listen to my Witcher podcast, and I just go through, like, talk you through the episodes, basically my thoughts of the episodes. I talk about how from episode 1 until episode 5, I think this was the best season of The Witcher. I absolutely loved it. I love characters this season on The Witcher that I absolutely did not love for 2 seasons. I understand the hype about the show, which I had never heard of The Witcher video games or the books before, which is odd because I am a video game head. Never heard of The Witcher video games, which like were super popular. They were, I think, more popular than the books, I would imagine. And all of the hype around it, because it has so much hype around it when it premiered on, or before it premiered on Netflix. When the fans heard that, they were making a Witcher TV series on Netflix, so much attention. And I never understood it because the first season was very basic. Okay. It did not come out the gate, guns blazing. It was very basic. And I was like, when I watched the first season, my whole opinion of it is like, you definitely have to be a fan of this to really be obsessed with it, because the fans are really obsessed with The Witcher. The Witcher fans are really obsessed with The Witcher. And I was like, well, I guess you got to be a fan of it to really, because that first season it was like, okay, it was kind of like a low budget fantasy series that I used to watch in the 90s. And I was like, that seems odd for Netflix in 2023. And then the second season rolls around, and of course I'm going to watch it because it was interesting enough to keep me entertained. It's not like I need big budget. I grew up on Hercules and Xena and Beastmaster in the 90s, right? I'm not one of these new age nerds who needs everything to be high tech. So I was like, it was entertaining enough for me. I definitely tuned into season 2. Season 2 was atrocious. I cannot, if you listen to my podcast, I talk about this more than I talk about anything else in the world, because this is the one thing that I cannot grasp my brain around, how atrocious that second season was. I think I got to episode 6 when I started to like really let go. But even before episode 6, I wasn't understanding what the hell was going on even then, because the show was struggling to keep my attention. But by episode 7, I was like, I'm done. And I think eventually over the past year and a half, well, I know that I have, but over the past, it literally took the whole time between season 2 and this premiere season 3 for me to get through the last couple of episodes, because it was just mind-boggling how atrocious. That's my phone if you hear that, sorry. But how atrocious season 2 was of The Witcher. Atrocious. I even posted on my Instagram page, this was bad. This was an epic fail for this show, especially coming off a first season that wasn't great. It was doable. It was watchable. It kept me entertained enough to look for a season 2 or watch a season 2 of a show that I don't have to pay extra for. Like, had it been on HBO, which I don't have, I have Netflix, I don't have cable, and I had to pay to see it, would I have? Hell no, not after the first season. It wasn't a Game of Thrones. It wasn't a, Last of Us. It was okay. And the fact that you don't have to pay extra for it, it's on Netflix. I already got Netflix. Sure, I'll watch it. Why not? I'll give my time to it. But the second season was so bad that it didn't matter. It didn't matter that I didn't have to pay extra for it. It didn't matter that it was on Netflix. I still barely could get through the second season. It was bad. And then I talk about constantly throughout the podcast, like, did they get new writers? Like, what did they do? What did they do? Because it seemed like an entirely different show. Entirely different. And so, yes, let's talk about Yennefer. Let's talk about the fail that was Yennefer. And I talk about this in my podcast. I, go over how it is epically an epic misstep on the part. And this is what Henry Cavill was so upset about, and what ended up getting him fired was the fact that the writers veered so heavily away from the books. And then I find out, because like I said, I'm not a fan. I wasn't a fan of Witcher before. I don't know a lot about the source material. And in my research, I find out that one of the big changes that they did make, which is one of the things that I absolutely hated about season 2. So I'm inclined to say Henry Cavill wasn't wrong. I don't think anybody should go into work and being a problem at work, because at the end of the day, let's get into it. Let's be real. And I've said this before, and it sounds harsh, but you have to play your role. And I've learned that in life. If you don't have the position or the status to make changes, you can't force changes. You just can't do it. So the fact of the matter is, a lot of actors step into roles and they have ownership of the characters, or they have ownership of the material, or but if you're not a producer or a director, you didn't put your money into, and let me just be very clear, I am almost certain that Henry Cavill was not an executive producer, or put any of his own money into the making of excuse me, my throat is very, hold on one second, I need some water. Into the making of The Witcher. I know he was very enthusiastic about it. I know he is a fan. I know he is a gamer. But he had no creative control over that show. And when you're an actor and you get paid to be an actor, the one thing directors, producers, writers, studio heads do not like is when actors try to overstep their roles, regardless how famous you are or if you're the lead or however it is. They pay you a lot of money to be the lead. So play your role. And so the fact that Henry Cavill didn't have any creative control over a show that he was very passionate about probably ruffled a lot of well, it did. We know it did because he got fired, right? So that's where I think he went wrong. But do I think he was wrong? No, he wasn't wrong, because the second season was atrocious. And come to find out, some of the things that I absolutely hated about the second season were direct divergence from the source material. So had they listened to Henry Cavill, we would have had a decent second season. Henry Cavill would still be the Witcher. None of the drama would have happened. Season 3 would have went off without a hitch, and we would still be all in a happy Witcher sort of universe, right? But it is what it is. That's the world we live in. Especially writers, when it comes to, Hollywood and things like that. Writers do not like to be told what to do when it comes to actors. When it's like, I wrote something, you say it how it is. There's very few actors who get the leeway of improvising or not. That's why they have script supervisors, because you're supposed to stick to that script. And it's, the Leonardo DiCaprios of the world and things like that who can, make their own creative, changes when it comes to a character, and people respect it. But Henry Cavill isn't that. I'm sorry. I know Henry Cavill fans hate to hear it, but he's not there. Clearly he's not, because he just got fired from a bunch of freaking shows and movies that apparently studio heads didn't find his worth worthy enough to keep him on through whatever was going on behind the scenes. So it is what it is. This is where we are. We don't have Henry Cavill anymore, unfortunately. Again, some of the changes, let me actually backtrack, because I want to talk about one of the big changes that happened from the source material, that diverged from the source material, the TV show and the source material, which was Yennefer. And as we know, in season 2, Yennefer makes this drastic, huge change or decision to offer up ciri so that she can get her magic back. And that did not happen in the source material. And I was like, well, it makes sense that it didn't happen in the source material, because it absolutely makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense. Even as conflicted as Yennefer was as a character, as the one thing that she shows that she wanted a kid, she had a soft spot for children, because she was a child who was abused, and she always wanted it. We're not even gonna get into all the reasons why Yennefer serving up ciri on a silver platter just to get her magic back made absolutely no sense. And then the main thing, even if she did do it, even if you made that her character, it's such a pivotal pin in her characterization that she then becomes the antagonist of the show, as opposed to the anti-hero or the protagonist. She becomes the antagonist, and it's very hard to take that pin out, which is what they did in season 3. They took that pin out of her being the antagonist because of what she did to ciri for her own selfish purposes. But it's such an odd pin to take out, because you've already put a stake in who she is and her character, specifically with with ciri. So you did that awful, atrocious thing. Like, what parent in their right mind would ever trust a person around their child again after doing that? And it wasn't even like she got close to doing it and then came to her senses and her love for ciri took over her and pulled back. She did the shit. She did it. And only after doing it did she come to her senses and decide to I guess they thought the sacrifice at the end would be enough. But no, bitch, you did it. What if it hadn't worked? What if it hadn't worked? That's it. Ciri's gone. You did it. How the hell is Geralt supposed to ever trust this woman around his child ever again? In real life, and I say this in my podcast, in real life, had that happen, that's it. Yennefer's head would have come off. Her head would have come off. And then maybe if my fit of rage didn't propel me to kill you, I would have let you live and walk away, but you would never be around my child again in real life. But because this is The Witcher and we know Yennefer plays a pivotal role in this show, and she is the anti-hero protagonist, mother figure of Ciri, they had to get back on track at some point. So I don't know the purpose. I don't know if they was, were they ready to write her character off in season 2? Because what was the turnaround for that? And how long was that turnaround supposed to be? Because all of a sudden in season 3, they're back together, or actually the end of season 2 is when they, she started making her amends. And in season 3, they're back together. Ciri's trusting her again. They mention it for like a hot second. And then within 3 episodes, Geralt is back to trusting her, talking to her, forgiving her. And it's like the turnaround is so quick. And like I said, in real time, never would have happened. But because it's a show that we know has to get to a certain point, we just accept it and we move on. Or at least I did. Maybe a lot of people didn't accept it because it is stupid. And it was a stupid change from the book to do that with a character that we're going to have to live with. Like I said, if you do that, if you put that pivotal stake in a character and make them do something that atrocious to the main character, that's it. You put that pin, you put that stake, and you have to live with the fact that they're now the antagonist of the show. You can't all of a sudden backtrack within a couple of episodes and I don't think you could backtrack at all. I don't think it should have ever been a point where they trusted Yennefer again. But because we know the story of Yennefer, the role she plays, they had to. The story had to go that way. And it's very obvious in season 3 that it's done because it has to be done, not because it makes sense. So that's one huge change from the source material that was absolutely one of my biggest pet peeves, and I thought was just the dumbest thing I had ever seen, and an absolutely wrong choice creatively to go with that character or just the story in general. And come to find out, that was one of the big divergence from the source material that season 2 took, which again, Henry Cavill was right, and it was a bad season altogether. So I don't know if they got rid of all of their writers I don't know, because it seemed like every season, and I say this in my podcast as well, every season has a different tone and a different look. Season 1 was very different than season 2, which is very different than season 3. If you watch season 3, it is a completely different fantasy show, and it's the best season that we've seen of The Witcher. And I think it's so sad that everything had to happen for it to get here, because it's here now, and it deserves to be watched, and it deserves the praise, and none of the fans are watching it because of how bad they treated Henry Cavill, how bad they treated the source material, and all of the fiasco for season 2. So that's what I want to say about my little Witcher pitch. If you can get over your hurt of Henry Cavill being kicked out of this show, I would say go watch it, because it is a marvelous part 1 of season 3 of a fantasy show. So don't forget to like, subscribe, share, be a part of the GOAT community. Comment down below if you have anything to say. Just make it respectful. And if you want to listen to my podcast when I upload them, all my nerd content and my opinions, you can subscribe to my Spotify channel. It's 99 cents a month. That link is on the front page of my YouTube channel. And then also, but if you don't want to pay the 99 cents a month, you can wait until the podcast premiere on YouTube. You just have to wait for the premiere date. Anyway it goes, I hope you subscribe, and I will see you next time.